The rain poured down over the tarmac like 1,000 needles of glass. The American flag snapped sharply against the storm wind, and the base sirens wailed faintly in the distance, warning of an incoming storm. The guards at Gate 3 huddled in their ponchos, heads down, hands cold, boots caked in mud. None of them noticed the lone woman walking down the empty runway, her uniform soaked, her cap low over her eyes, and a small radio clipped to her vest crackling with static. Her name was Captain Sarah Whitmore. And that night, she was about to remind an entire base and one very arrogant officer what true duty looked like. She had returned to Fort Glendale unannounced. No escort, no convoy, no fanfare. Just a single black SUV that dropped her off at the edge of the airfield and disappeared into the rain. She was thin but strong, her posture as straight as a blade, her eyes sharp and quiet. She'd been away for a long time, too long. Most on base assumed she had left for good after the Afghanistan mission that broke her team apart. Some whispered she'd been discharged after the classified operation that went wrong. None of them knew the truth. Inside the command center, Lieutenant Colonel Rick Sanders was in charge. A man known for his pride, his ambition, and his temper. He didn't like surprises, and he especially didn't like being outranked. When the guards radioed in to report a lone female officer walking unannounced onto the runway, Sanders didn't hesitate. He ordered her detained immediately. "No one steps foot here without clearance," he barked. "Arrest her if you have to." Sarah didn't resist when 2 MPs approached her. She simply stopped walking and turned toward them, rain dripping from her cap. They demanded ID. She gave them her badge and a quiet, unwavering stare. They hesitated. Something about the calm in her face made them uneasy. But they followed orders. They cuffed her and led her toward the base office, where Sanders waited with a smirk. The lights flickered as thunder cracked overhead. Sanders looked her up and down, unimpressed. "You've got guts walking in here like you own the place," he sneered. "Name and rank." Sarah remained silent. The room tensed. Her soaked uniform clung to her shoulders. The faint insignia on her chest was faded but still visible, the emblem of a unit that didn't officially exist. One of the guards leaned closer and whispered, "Sir." "That patch is from Echo Task Force," Sanders frowned. "Echo Task Force. That unit's been decommissioned for years." Sarah finally spoke, her voice low and steady. "You're right. It was." He slammed his hand on the desk. "Enough games. You're trespassing on a secure military base. Give me one good reason not to throw you in a cell." She met his glare without blinking. "You wouldn't dare," she said softly, her voice filled with the kind of quiet authority that unnerves men who thrive on control. Before Sanders could respond, the small radio clipped to Sarah's vest crackled to life. The static cleared, and then every head in the room turned. A calm, commanding voice came through the channel. "Captain Whitmore, this is President Reynolds. Are you in position?" The room fell silent. Even the storm seemed to stop for a heartbeat. Sanders froze. His jaw dropped. The guards exchanged terrified looks. Everyone knew that voice. Every soldier had heard it 100 times in briefings, on broadcasts, in orders. It was unmistakable. The President of the United States. Sarah pressed the radio to her chest. "Yes, sir. Arrived at Fort Glendale. Situation secure." The President's voice continued. "Good. Operation Sentinel begins at dawn. You have full authority over all base personnel until further notice. Godspeed, Captain." The radio clicked off. For a long, heavy second, no one moved. Sanders' face went pale. The air was thick with disbelief. He stumbled over his words. "Wait, you report directly to the President?" Sarah didn't answer. She simply reached into her vest, pulled out a sealed envelope marked with the presidential crest, and placed it on his desk. "My orders, Lieutenant Colonel. Signed 2 hours ago." He tore it open with trembling hands. The contents confirmed it. Captain Sarah Whitmore was operating under direct presidential command for a classified security assessment of all military installations. Fort Glendale was her first stop. And effective immediately, she outranked him. The storm raged outside, but inside that room no one spoke. Sanders stood there, stripped of his arrogance, his pride shattered. He saluted her awkwardly but sincerely. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "my apologies." Sarah nodded once. "Apologies don't fix neglect, Colonel. This base's readiness is below standard. The soldiers are untrained, the security lacks, and morale's broken. You've forgotten why we wear this uniform. Her words cut deep, not out of cruelty, but truth. Sanders lowered his head. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of what he had lost, his sense of duty, his connection to the very men and women he commanded. Over the next week, the base transformed under Sarah's leadership. She trained alongside the youngest recruits, ate with the mechanics, stood guard in the freezing rain, and listened to stories from those long ignored. Slowly, something changed. Soldiers who had stopped believing began to stand taller again. The forgotten pride of the unit reignited like a flame long smothered. And Sanders, the once proud officer, learned humility in silence. He worked beside her, followed her orders, and began to understand what leadership really meant. By the time the president arrived in person a week later, Fort Glendale was unrecognizable. The inspection team couldn't believe their eyes. The soldiers stood sharp, the drills ran flawlessly, and morale soared. When the ceremony ended, the president approached Sarah privately and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did more than assess a base," he said. "You reminded them what service means." That night, as the sun set over the horizon, Sarah stood on the tarmac again, alone, quiet, reflective. She looked out toward the hangars and whispered to the wind, "Mission complete." For the first time in years, she allowed herself to smile. Not the kind that came from pride, but from peace. And somewhere in that silence, you could almost hear the echoes of her fallen comrades, her old team from Echo Task Force standing beside her once more. If this story touched your heart, if you felt the pride, pain, and power of true leadership, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Legends of History. Your support helps keep stories like this alive for those who still believe in honor and courage. Special request. Tell us in the comments, what does real leadership mean to you?